Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
That you say?
Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today, you're in for some stuff. We'll begin with a history lesson followed by an audiobook review of George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones. You've probably seen the HBO series. Now, find out more about the 1996 novel. Then we have two stories sent in by you for you. A haunted mansion and an electric shadow man. Our featured story is a suspenseful tale from the early 60s that explores the idea of the bomb shelter. Then we close the show with a satirical look at Ask Ann Landers. You don't know who that is? Stick around and find out.
Johnny, is this true?
As you know by now, I like to surf the internet to find the strange and unusual. I do this in the name of the podcast, but the truth is, I would do it anyway, even if there was no podcast. What you're about to hear is...
Johnny, is this true?
I will tell you a story and then ask the question, did I make it up or is it true? Your job is to decide. Let's get started.
Johnny, is this true?
On this edition of Johnny, Is It True? I'm going to give you a fact, and all you have to do is decide if I made it up or not. The question is, do you know your trivial knowledge? I know that most of my stored stuff is very trivial. Let's get started. Fact number 1. Germany has more castles than there are McDonald's in the United States. Now, that sounds truly impossible, doesn't it? It can't be right. Yup, you heard that right. Germany is estimated to have 25,000 castles, and as of 2023, there are 13,449 McDonald's restaurants in the United States. This is the largest number of restaurants in any country, which makes hamburgers the cornerstone of American dining. Fact number 2. There are caves in Missouri that store 1.4 billion pounds of government-owned cheese. I know, I had to make that one up, right? Nope. Located in the Ozark Mountains in a limestone-converted mine are hundreds of thousands of pounds of American cheese. The caves are kept perfectly at 36 degrees. How we got to this point is a long story. In short, there was a response to a dairy shortage in 1977. Then President Jimmy Carter decided to pour money into the dairy industry to motivate production and alleviate the crisis. I guess he overdid it just a bit. Fact number 3. I was pleased to find out that a buttload is an actual unit of measurement. One buttload is equivalent to 126 gallons of wine. Now, that is some useful information, if it's true. For real, this isn't a prank. A butt is an actual unit of measurement. Basically, before measurements were standardized, the empirical system, considered the Wild West of measurement systems, was used. Seafaring merchants shipped wine, whiskey, and other alcoholic beverages in large wooden casks. These casks came in different sizes, ranging from a rundlet, the smallest, to a ton, the biggest. Fun fact, a ton is the equivalent of 2 butts, or 126 gallons of wine times 2. Fact number 4. To protect themselves from their super long pecks, woodpeckers wrap their tongues around their brains. If true, that is one cool party trick. Well, this one is true. A woodpecker's very long tongue splits into a V between the eyes and wraps completely around the woodpecker's skull. The total length of a woodpecker's tongue can be up to a third of the bird's total body length. Having its tongue wrapped around the back of its brain doesn't just give the woodpecker somewhere to store an amazingly long appendage, it also helps protect the brain from injury during high-speed pecking. Now that is amazing. Okay, so all my facts were true. I just couldn't help it. There is so much weird stuff out there if you only look. I hope you enjoyed this bit of Johnny, Is It True? I surely enjoy creating them. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Have you ever heard of the Wars of the Roses? Or how about the Mongol Empire? Or maybe you're familiar with Hadrian's Wall. These are real places, events, and people from our very own history. Let's take a brief look at them. The Wars of the Roses. This was the English royal succession fight in the second half of the 15th century between the White Rose of York and the Red Rose of Lancaster. They were a series of battles fought for control of the English throne. The conflict resulted in the end of the Lancaster male line, leaving the Tudor family to inherit their claim to the throne through the female line. The conflict was brought to an end upon the union of the two houses through marriage, creating the Tudor dynasty that would subsequently rule England. The Mongol Empire. We've all heard of the nomadic horse-loving warriors who ruled the vast plains in the 13th and 14th centuries across Asia and Europe. The Mongol Empire emerged from the unification of several nomadic tribes in the heartland under the leadership of Temujin, known by the more famous title of Genghis Khan. And of course, Hadrian's Wall, the Great Wall of Stone between Wallsend in North Tyneside and Bowness on the Solway in Cumbria. It was built to guard the northwest frontier of the Roman Empire and runs a modest 73 miles and around 20 feet at its highest point. Not the Great Wall of China, but pretty impressive. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what do all these have in common, and why is Ron talking about them? Well, George R.R. Martin has admitted that the Dothraki are based in part on Khan's exploits. He has also admitted that he came up with his giant ice wall creation while visiting Hadrian's Wall near the Scottish border. And the Wars of the Roses. Well, the original Game of Thrones series of books was inspired by that time period. So what ties all these together is our audiobook review of The Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. It ended its run by averaging just under 12 million viewers for its initial airing, and a staggering 44 million across all platforms over the course of its 8th and final season. It grew its audience every season, a nearly unheard of feat for a television series. And I'll have to admit, I was one of those 44 million. But is the original book any good? Well, it is very good, and here is a clip from the prologue.
"We should start back," Garrett urged as the woods began to grow dark around them. "The wildlings are dead." "Do the dead frighten you?" Sir Waymar Royce asked with just the hint of a smile. Garrett did not rise to the bait. He was an old man, past 50, and he had seen the lordlings come and go. "Dead is dead," he said. "We have no business with the dead." "Are they dead?" Royce asked softly. "What proof have we?" "Will saw them," Garrett said, "and if he says they're dead, that's proof enough for me." Will had known they would drag him into the quarrel sooner or later. He wished it had been later rather than sooner. "My mother told me that dead men sing no songs," he put in. "My wet nurse said the same thing, Will," Royce replied. "Never believe anything you hear. There are things to be learned even from the dead." His voice echoed, too loud in the twilight forest. "We have a long ride before us," Garrett pointed out. 8 days, maybe 9, and night is falling. Sir Waymar Royce glanced at the sky with disinterest. "It does that every day about this time. Are you unmanned by the dark, Garrett?" Will could see the tightness around Garrett's mouth, the barely suppressed anger in his eyes under the thick black hood of his cloak. Garrett had spent 40 years in the Night's Watch, man and boy, and he was not accustomed to being made light of. Yet it was more than that. Under the wounded pride, Will could sense something else in the older man. You could taste it, a nervous tension that came perilously close to fear. Will shared his unease. He had been 4 years on the wall. The first time he had been sent beyond, all the old stories had come rushing back, and his bowels had turned to water. He had laughed about it afterwards. He was a veteran of 100 rangings by now, and the endless dark wilderness that the Southerns call the haunted forest had no more terrors for him. Until tonight.
Well, winter is coming. Such is the stern motto of House Stark. His family dwells in peace and comfort. His proud wife, his 3 sons, his daughter, and his bastard son, Jon Snow. But far to the north, behind the towering wall, lies the savage wildlings, and worse. Unnatural things relegated to myth during the centuries-long summer, but proving all too real and all too deadly in the turning of the season. Everyone is heading towards Winterfell, and the fateful encounter that will change the course of kingdoms. The HBO version of this is wonderful, but the book is so much more compelling. The characters are richer and have more depth. While this series becomes increasingly complex, book to book, the first entry, Game of Thrones, is delightfully streamlined. Rather than introducing a million characters and locations, it focuses on the 3 major families. I was struck by the subversive nature of Thrones. George R.R. Martin has created a world of betrayals and backstabs, one that values information and subterfuge far more than swords and shining armor. It is an epic tale, and one worth listening to. As for the narration, Audible picked veteran Roy Dutrice, a British stage and screen actor. He brings his highly adaptable voice to the audiobook, giving even more color to Martin's writing. His style is relaxed and compelling to listen to. You find yourself lost in his words. Of course, if you've followed the HBO series, you probably already know that this book is not meant for kids. It does contain adult themes and graphic violence. But it tells a story that I found quite entertaining. And if that appeals to you, head to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories and you can have Game of Thrones for free. Here is what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook in 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out the service. You can stream or download thousands of included audiobooks, podcasts, and Audible originals in the Plus catalog. There's so much to do that you'll never run out of things to listen to. So, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. You'll be helping me out, and you'll get a free book. Thank you, Audible. And now it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Welcome to another round of Your Stories. I wanted to take a minute and tell you that this is not the only way to get your stories. I have been doing a weekly blog that is aptly titled, These Are Your Stories. Here I take some of your submissions and post them in a blog format. Currently, there are about 700 followers of the blog. If you want to have a story emailed to you each week, then head to the main website and click on the blog tab or banner. Then simply click the follow button. Now for the stories. This one is another shadow encounter, and I gotta tell you, these still freak me out. It was sent in by Jason Dreyer, and he has titled it 283 East Broadway. When I was a kid, my mom moved us into an old mansion that had been converted into apartments. The place was about 3 homes down the street from a mortuary in which there was a wayward cemetery behind it. That's another story. So when we first moved in, everything was fine. However, my mom's bedroom door would swing open and slam shut and then repeat. My mom would tell me that it was something wrong with the hinges of the door that caused it to do that, but my guts always told me differently. Some days it would open and shut here and there, but there were some nights that it would go absolutely wild. Fast forward a couple months. I didn't want to sleep in my room because I always saw the silhouette of a person in my doorway just looking at me. I would literally be frozen. One thing that happened to me that I will never forget was when my grandmother was babysitting me and she told me not to run in the house. She left me inside to go sit on the porch, so I decided to fill my water gun and join her. I went into the kitchen, which is a straight shot from the back of the apartment to the front door with no obstructions. The setup went like this. Starting at the back of the apartment, there was the kitchen. Then the dining room, followed by the living room, and finally the front door. Just wide open space, fit for running. I filled my water gun and took off at full speed. As soon as I hit the living room, I was pushed and held down. I screamed, but nothing would come out. I felt like I was glued to the floor for hours. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't move. Nothing. It felt like sleep paralysis, except that I was fully awake. I honestly don't know how long I was on the floor, but 1 minute sound didn't exist, and the next it did. It was like someone turned the volume up in the universe to max. It was then my grandma walked in the door. The look I gave her must have been wild because she looked so confused. I asked her if she heard me screaming, and she looked at me like I was crazy and said no. I ended up telling her what happened to me, and she sternly told me not to run around in that apartment. A few years later, my mom did some research on the house. It turns out that a man killed his wife and hung himself in the bedroom doorway that just happens to have been my bedroom. So that pretty much explains the swinging door and my shadow man. This happened in Salem, New Jersey. My mom sold the house a few years later, and we now all live in Oregon. Jason Dreyer, Oregon. Well, I guess my first question is, did you ever run in that house again? I'm going to guess and say, probably not. Thank you, Jason, for sharing your story. This next story is also about a shadow character. We're getting so many of these lately, and actually that's quite disturbing. Why the increase of shadow encounters? I surely don't know, and truth be told, I don't want to know. This one was sent in by Dewey Hogan from New York, and he has titled it Electric Shadow. This happened on holiday in Ibiza in the summer of 2018. I've always been pretty skeptical about ghosts, etc., but this thing, well, made me see it a little differently. The reason I'm sharing it is because I find it cathartic to do so. For the record, Ibiza is a Spanish island in the Mediterranean Sea off the eastern coast of the Iberian Peninsula. I stayed with my parents in an old dated motel built probably somewhere in the 50s or 60s. The two-bedroom apartment had a dismantled fireplace in it, the doors were completely rigid, and had vintage but sturdy knobs. The cottage had this keycard holder in order to have electricity. You would purchase the card, plug it in, and the power would come on. Take it out again, and the power would go off. We decided to leave the keycard in the holder so that we didn't have to put it in every time. One of the last days of our holiday came to an end, and I went to bed. My room was located right by the entrance. I went to sleep, but I eventually woke up around 5 a.m. I had this weird dream, one that I've never had before. I was standing in a strange room, and there was a dark man in the corner. He was trying to speak to me, but I couldn't hear anything. I was rethinking what happened in my dream, and I wanted to move my head. But to my horror, it was really painful, as that I had this stiff neck. Luckily, I could move it enough, and I managed to turn the lamp on the nightstand. I looked at my phone to see what time it was, and I also tried to ease my stiff neck, but it didn't help. Eventually, I got the stiffness out and turned the lamp off and went back to sleep. About 5 minutes later, for no reason, I was blankly staring into the room full of darkness with a tiny bit of light coming through the curtains. I looked around a bit. In the corner of the room, I saw a black shadow-like figure standing there. I could see no eyes, but I knew he was looking at me. At that moment, I was totally paralyzed, and I kept looking at it. It began to move and eventually walked right through the bedroom door. And yes, it was closed. After it disappeared, I immediately tried to turn the lamp on the nightstand, but to my horror, it didn't work. There was no power at all. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. Instantly, I thought about the keycard holder, and with my flashlight in hand, I opened the door to go check. It was still in place, but it had moved up a little, because when I pressed it back down, the power came back on. It was then I realized that the corner where I saw the black shadow standing was the same wall where the keycard was located. So, the weird dream, stiff neck, no power even though 5 minutes before there was, and the location of the shadow and keycard holder make it hard for me to believe that this was just one big chain of coincidences. Ron, what do you think? Dewey Hogan, New York. Well, I've never heard of that keycard setup before, and that in itself is strange. As for your Shadow Man, like I said, we've seen a huge increase in these sightings. I have many theories as to what they might be, everything from time slips to evil entities. Yours seems to be one of the nicer types. Thank you, Dewey, for sharing your story. Well, that's it for this time. If you have a story that you want to share, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com. Click on the story submission banner, leave your story, give it a title, and please tell me where you're from. I'll read it if I can. Our featured story comes from another place and another time. We've all experienced our own hunkering down during the pandemic year of 2020. Some 60 plus years ago, others were preparing to hunker down, but for a very different reason: a potential nuclear war. During the early years of the Cold War, many American families created underground bomb shelters. They fitted them with supplies needed to survive for several days or even several weeks. It was even a business of sorts. Don't believe me? Take a listen to this.
The international struggles of our world may lead to nuclear holocaust. To survive, you must have protection from radioactive fallout.
In the past, heavy equipment necessitated a long, costly operation for out-of-home shelter installation.
Today, Survival basement-type shelters offer a combination steel and concrete do-it-yourself fallout shelter.
Civil Defense approved, Survival offers maximum protection from fallout and falling debris, plus a basic equipment kit for family survival.
There's low initial cost and FHA approval. Nothing down and 5 years to pay.
For your family's protection, see a Survival shelter today.
Bomb shelters were a thing, and our story today takes a look at that time. It comes from the OTR series Suspense and is titled No Hiding Place. It first aired on October 1st, 1961, and just 1 year later, the USA and Cuba would square off in what would be called the Cuban Missile Crisis. It lasted from October 16th to October 28th, 1962. This confrontation is widely considered the closest the Cold War came to escalating into full-scale nuclear war. Now, having said that, please enjoy our story, No Hiding Place.
No, there's no hiding place down there. Not when the gods of wrath loose their terrible swift sword. Not when the hound of heaven carries his quarry down the curving lanes of space. Not when there's the bomb. But these things happen to somebody else, not to us. The bomb won't drop on us, we tell ourselves. Death will not come for us. And death, off stage, smiles and nods and agrees.
No one ever dies until he is dead.
Here and there you find a strange one, a citizen and taxpayer who believes what he reads in the papers, a fellow who takes things seriously, a fellow who looks after his own, a fellow like Sam Endover, husband, father, and a man who believes if you don't do it yourself, nobody will do it for you.
To you, maybe, but not for you.
What's that mean?
Nothing really, just trying to get things started.
Seems to me you got enough started with that bomb shelter you're digging in the backyard.
Fallout shelter, Mary Lou. No such thing as a bomb shelter these days. Bombs are too big. No protecting against them. Just fallout. No place in the country is safe from radioactive fallout after an attack.
Except us.
And folks like us, who've built their own shelters.
Well, just between you and me, Sam, I wouldn't be caught dead in that cave you've dug.
You'd sure be caught dead outside of it come an attack.
Hey, Pop.
Yes, Andy?
There are a couple of fellows outside from the TV station.
TV? Oh, yes.
They want to know where the bomb shelter is.
Fallout shelter, Sandy.
Sam, what is this?
Tell them it's out back, and tell your sister to come out. They'll probably want to put us all on TV, I suspect.
Put us on TV? The very idea, Sam Andover. Springing a thing like this on me without any warning. My hair's a sight, my dress is a mess.
Now, Mary Lou, you look just fine to me.
Oh, now what?
Aha, that'll be the mayor, I imagine.
The mayor?
Yes, you know how politicians like to get in on things like this. It's a big story. Locally, that is.
Sam Andover, I'll be surprised if I ever speak to you again as long as I live.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce your friend and mine, His Honor, the Mayor of Happy Valley.
Thank you, Charlie Lemon. This is a great and historic occasion, my fellow citizens. It marks the completion of the very first fallout shelter in our fair city. It is not only as your mayor, but as head of your civil defense organization that I am here today to congratulate our public-minded fellow townsman, Sam Andover.
Hear that,
now, at
Taylor?
first sight,
He's talking about me.
The very idea of pulling this on me without any warning. Daddy, do I look all right?
You look scrumptious, honey.
The red light's on. Means the camera's on us.
Merciful heavens.
Say cheese, honey.
This here's Sam Andover and his lovely wife, Mrs. Andover, and his two lovely children. Sam, I want you to know Happy Valley is proud of you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Now, Sam, maybe you'd like to tell all the folks out there how come you came to build this fallout shelter.
Oh, well, Your Honor, it seemed to me everybody was talking about defense and shelters, and nobody was doing anything about it. It seemed like somebody ought to get started, so I decided to build her.
Splendid. Citizenship in action. Wouldn't you say, Mrs. Andover?
It doesn't make any difference what I say. When my husband gets a bee in his bonnet, it's an ID fixe, if you know what I mean.
Yes, indeed I do. And what about the young folks? What do you think about your dad's project,
Who, me?
Yes, my dear, you. What's your name?
I'm Cindy.
And I'm Sandy.
Yes, Sandy. Just a minute, Cindy. How do you like this fallout shelter?
Oh, I don't know.
Is it comfortable?
I don't know. I guess so.
Oh, how would you know? You've never even been down in it.
Have you, Sandy?
Sure. I think it's cool and a half.
Cool and... Well, Sam, now how about telling the folks about your shelter, eh?
Well, okay. Well, now up above here, you can see the two ventilating pipes. You pump stale air out of this one, and it's replaced by fresh air through this one. Now inside, well, it isn't a mansion, but it's got all the necessities. Canned goods, bottled water, paper towels, paper plates, first aid kit.
And you've got a radio, of course.
Oh, yes, and extra batteries. Everything to keep the family going for 2 weeks.
Splendid, just splendid. You're to be congratulated, Sam. Happy Valley is indeed proud of you.
It's very impressive, Mr. Andover. But will it work?
What do you mean, Charlie?
Well, do you really think 4 people could live in that little room for 2 weeks?
Well, of course I do.
Personally, I doubt they could stand it for a week. Even for a weekend.
Now, look here, Charlie Lemon. We're talking about survival, about a matter of life or death.
Yes, I know. But just between you and me, Mr. Andover, would you really put your family down there in that little hole?
I most certainly would, if it became necessary. And I'll prove it to you, and to all the other doubters, just how good my shelter is.
What do you mean?
Well, I'll take my family into it right now, just as if we were...
Oh, Sam!
And we'll spend the weekend down there, with no discomfort at all. And you can stay here, if you like, and take our pictures when we come out. Maybe that'll be proof, Mr. Charlie Wise Guy Lemon.
Sam, are you out of your mind?
No, but I'm good and mad, and...
That would be a convincing demonstration, Mr. Andover, if you really mean it.
I mean it. Go on, Sandy, pile in there.
Oh, boy, the whole weekend.
All right, you next, Cindy.
But, Daddy, I've got a date tonight.
No time for dates. This is going to be just like it'd be if there was an attack. In you go.
But, Daddy,
In. All right, you next, Mary Lou.
Sam, I told you I wouldn't be caught dead down there.
You're not going to let me down in front of the TV audience now, are
I
you?
just might.
Oh, Mary Lou, please be a pal.
Sam,
Besides, it's beginning to rain.
Sam.
Smile for the camera, like you were saying cheese, not prunes.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Sam Andover has just locked himself and his family into his backyard fallout shelter to demonstrate how comfortable and safe it is. Good luck to you, Mr. Andover, and to your courageous family who will spend the weekend in your homemade fallout shelter. We return you now to our studios.
Yeah, you were a little hard on Sam Andover.
Maybe, but it's a better story this way, isn't it?
Well, yes, I suppose so.
Better story for civil defense. We might even be able to tie it into a network news show. Get it all over the country.
My, that would be wonderful for Happy Valley, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't hurt you either. Come next November, would it, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I wasn't thinking of that.
Of course not.
Hey, Charlie.
Yeah.
Studio's on the horn.
Thanks, Joe. Charlie Lemon here.
This is Mr. Richards, Charlie.
Yes, sir?
That was a nice fast one you just pulled on Sam Andover.
Oh, well, you know how it is.
You made a good show out of a routine pickup.
I thought so.
Well, here's one that may top that.
What is it?
You get that mobile unit up to Larson Dam as quick as you can.
What's the trouble?
Well, there's none yet, but there may be plenty. The rain that just started down here is a cloudburst upriver. They're afraid the dam can't handle it.
I'm on my way. Mobile 1 over and out. Wrap it up, boys. We're pulling out.
But what about them, Andover and his family?
You heard what Sam said. They're safe down there for 2 weeks.
Say now, you can't beat this, can you? All the comforts of home.
Like what?
Why, electric lights, radio, running water.
No television. Why isn't there any TV, Dad?
It takes up too much room, makes too much heat. And anyway, under attack conditions, we'd have to depend on radio for instructions.
What are we going to do without any TV?
There are books.
Yes, indeed. The Bible, Shakespeare, and what to do till your doctor comes.
And there are magazines. Here, Cindy, here's your favorite movie magazine.
I saw that one 2 weeks ago. Look, Dad, can't I get out of here? I got a very important date with Alan.
I'm sure Alan understands. He probably saw you on TV.
Oh, no.
Or heard about you on radio. You're a celebrity, you know. First on TV and then on radio. We all are. Celebrities.
Celebrity or not, the air's getting close down here.
All right. Sandy, crank up the vent blowers.
Sure, Dad.
There. That clears her out in a hurry.
It does? Hadn't noticed any difference.
You will.
Sam, listen. I've gone along with this the way you asked me to, but don't ask too much. I'm telling you now, I intend to sleep in my own bed tonight.
Then can I go on my date?
You two don't seem to realize how important this is.
I realize you let yourself be tricked by that smooth-talking Charlie Lemon into putting your family through one of the silliest, most uncomfortable darn fool
Wait
things.
a minute. Look at it this way, Mary Lou. When people see how easy it is for us to get by in a shelter...
Easy? Ha!
Maybe they might build shelters for themselves.
Now, here's the latest on the storm.
Turn up the radio, son. Let's see what they have to say about us.
Have been falling steadily in the city and surrounding countryside for several hours. This unprecedented downpour has placed a strain on the Larson Dam, and it's now doubtful if it can hold through the night.
Oh, no.
Residents in Hawthorne Ravine, beneath the dam, are being evacuated by police and civilian defense teams. Elsewhere, mudslides have blocked several roads in the outskirts of the city. Just 5 minutes ago, the mayor declared a state of emergency in Happy Valley and wired the governor to designate the town as a disaster area. In addition to the flood danger, mudslides created by the heavy rain are threatening homes in many areas. Civil defense
I don't understand it. They haven't mentioned us on the radio all evening.
They have more important things on their minds, it would appear. Well, it's time to go to bed.
are requested
Very well,
to
dear.
report there as soon
You
as
want a
possible.
lower or an upper?
I said go to bed. In my own bed, in my own house.
But we can't do that, Mary Lou. That'd be cheating, going back on my word.
Nobody's going to know or care. They've forgotten all about us with this storm. Well, Cindy, you ready for bed?
Oh, yes, Mother.
I want to stay down here.
I don't care what you men do, but us ladies are going to sleep in the house tonight.
Now, listen,
You
Mary
listen
Lou.
to me, Sam. I'm fed up. I've had it up to here. Now, you let me out of here this minute.
The lights.
Hey, what's that?
Turn on the lights.
Just a minute. Wait till I find a flashlight. The storm. The power failure, that's all.
That's all.
Daddy, you know I hate the dark.
Here's a flashlight, Dad.
Good boy, Sandy.
Scared, Daddy.
Now, there's nothing to be scared about, honey. We're all together.
Are we? Are you ready to stop this nonsense and go back to the house?
Oh. All right, Mary Lou, I guess so. But there probably won't be any lights there either.
There'll be hot water and room to move around in.
All right, you win. We'll go back to the house. That's funny.
What?
The door's stuck. Here, son, take this light a minute, will you? Try to free her. She's giving a little.
Sam, look.
Eh? What?
Squeezing around the edge of the door.
Mud. Well, there's no wonder I couldn't push it open against all that muck. They said on the radio, mudslides. We're buried in a mudslide.
What are we going to do?
Nothing, Mary Lou. There's nothing we can do. We're stuck here until they come and get us.
I'm scared, Daddy. I'm scared.
No, Sam, no. We can't stay down here. Buried alive.
Now, shut up, both of you. We can and we will. This shelter was designed and equipped to keep the four of us alive for 2 weeks.
We'll all be dead in 2 weeks.
They'll come for us long before
No.
that.
They'll forget. They've got too many other people to take care of. They'll leave us here to rot in our
I
graves.
said to shut up!
Gee, Pop.
Oh, Sam. You hit me.
Well, I'm sorry, darling. I had to. This is no time to panic. Sandy.
Yes, Dad?
Get on the air pump. I want to make sure our ventilation is working.
Sure, Pop.
Yeah, she's pulling the used air out okay. Yep. We're getting good fresh air from the outside. Good. Now, listen to me. We have nothing to worry about. Absolutely nothing. We're in the identical situation we'd be in after an H-bomb attack. We're forced to remain in this shelter for an indeterminate length of time. We have fresh air. We have food. We have a little light.
What happens when those batteries burn out?
They won't. If we use the light carefully, they'll last more than 2 weeks. There's only one thing that can hurt us.
What, Daddy? What can hurt us?
Ourselves. Cowardice. Panic. Tears. Hysteria. Like I said, we're okay and we're provided for. And there's only one thing that is asked of us.
What's that, Dad?
That we survive.
No hiding place down there. Not when forces beyond man's control conspire against man's comfort and convenience. No hiding place. When thunderheads climb majestically in the summer afternoon and dump a Niagara of rain in one little river valley. A whim of nature from which no man is altogether safe. But at least nature's whim and not man's. A storm that is over with the next day's sun. Not a man-made sun exploding and poisoning air and earth and sky for days on end.
Mobile 1, Charlie Lemon speaking.
This is Richards, Charlie. You going to call it a day?
2 days and a night. I'm beat.
Well, I'll bet you are. Well, you take tomorrow off. Now, I'll have Eddie Hartwig cover the mobile unit for you.
Thanks, Mr. Richards. It'll be pretty quiet, just clean up stuff. Dam's holding and the water's dropping. Of course, the mudslides will be giving some trouble until they settle, but they're mostly in new subdivisions in the hills. And everyone's been evacuated from the really bad areas.
Well, you can be proud of yourself, Charlie. You've got a lot of fine pickups the last couple of days, beginning yesterday morning with that family in the fallout shelter.
Holy smokes, I forgot all about them.
Well, no wonder you've been a little busy.
No, listen, Mr. Richards. They live in Holly Glens. That's the site of one of the worst mudslides. And I was the one who dared them to go into that shelter. It's all my fault.
But they're all right. They're in the shelter.
That's for sure, but how do you know they're all right?
I wear my pink pajamas in the summer when it's hot. I wear my woolen nightie in the winter when it's not. And sometime in the springtime and sometime in the fall, I jump between the sheets without a darn thing on at all.
It's a long time since I heard that song. Where did you learn it, Sandy?
In the Scouts.
Well, that's where I first heard it.
Yeah?
When I was a scout, yeah, way back before the war.
Which war, Dad?
Well, the World War, of course.
1 or 2?
Sandy, your father's a young man. Why, he almost missed the Second World War. He was so young.
Yes, I had to lie about my age, but they finally made me a drummer boy with an armor division.
Come on, Dad.
Mary Lou, this is wonderful.
What is, honey?
We're talking to each other. We're kidding with each other. We're not looking at television. It's just wonderful.
Oh, it is nice, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm pleased to meet you, Mary Lou. I'm glad to make your acquaintance, Sandy.
Hi.
And to know you, Cindy.
Oh, Daddy.
We've all been away from each other far too long.
Sam,
Yes, darling.
hold my hand.
Like that?
Like that. And squeeze it hard. Like that. Oh, Sam, I don't want to get lost from you again.
You won't, honey, I promise.
Daddy,
Yes, dear.
I don't feel so good.
What's the matter?
I've got a headache. And I feel sort of woozy.
Oh, well, we'll fix that. Sandy, man the pumps.
Aye, sir.
All you need is a little fresh air, my girl. And that's what we got. Fresh air coming up.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah?
Something's funny. This pump's hard to turn.
Well, let me see. Yeah, so it is. All right, keep turning while I test the suction. No, it's not pumping any air out. Hand me that broom, Sandy.
Here you are.
You. I just poke it up the pipe and see what's obstructing it. Oh, my.
Sam, what is it?
Oh, no.
Sam, where's all that mud coming from?
From the ventilating pipe, that's where. The mudslide's covered the shelter completely. It's blocking the vents. It's cut off our air. We're trapped down here.
Sam, now don't you press the panic button.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't want to have to slap your face.
Oh, that would never do. Not in front of the children.
Daddy, my headache's something awful.
I'll get you some aspirin. But I'm not sure it'll do any good.
Oh, why not?
Well, I think Daddy better tell you.
Yeah. Now, listen carefully, kids, and quietly. We're in a bad spot. Our air is cut off. We only have as much air to breathe as there is in the shelter. Now, I want you to lie down and don't make any sudden movements. And don't breathe deeply. We've got to conserve the air as long as we can.
For how long, Dad?
I don't know, Sandy. Until they come and dig us out.
But they won't come. Mother said so.
Crying won't make them come. Now, knock it off.
Yes, Daddy.
Take this aspirin, dear.
Wait a minute. We're having so much fun entertaining ourselves, I forgot all about the portable radio. Turn it on, son.
Yeah.
Let's see if anybody's got a bigger disaster than we have.
Evacuation post in the basement of the police station. 2 bulldozers are needed at once in Holly Glen. 2 bulldozers to Holly Glen at once.
Listen, Holly Glen.
Attention,
Maybe they
Sam
remember.
Andover.
They have. Listen.
This is a message to Sam Andover and his family in their bomb shelter in Holly Glen. Your shelter is buried beneath a mudslide. We are making every effort to dig you out.
Oh, thank God.
Bulldozers are on their way. But meantime, volunteer civil defense workers are shoveling away at this mountain of mud from which I am speaking directly above you. Hang
Right
on.
above us.
Don't panic. Help is on its way.
On its way. But will it get here soon enough?
How does it look, Mr. Mayor?
That mudslide's treacherous, Charlie. As soon as the dozer cuts away a path, the hill comes down and fills it up.
Have they any estimate on when they'll get through?
It's anybody's guess.
I feel terrible about this. You know, it's my fault they're down there.
Don't feel too bad yet. Look at what happened to their house. That big tree fell right across the bedroom wing. They'd all be dead if they'd been there last night.
Maybe they're dead anyway.
Let us pray that they're not.
Yeah, you do that. Hey, Joe.
Yeah?
Cut me into program channel.
Okay. Start in my cue.
This is a message to Sam Endover and his family. This is a message to Sam Endover and his family. Charlie Lemon speaking. This mudslide is giving us a lot of trouble, but the bulldozers are making headway. 2 of them have been working for the last hour.
Sandy?
And we've sent for 2 more.
Sandy.
So don't worry. We're going to get you
Sandy?
out. I repeat.
She's still breathing.
This is a message to Sam
Let me turn off that
Endover and
radio.
his family.
Oh, honey, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh, shh. Don't get excited. Don't use up the air, dear.
It's all my fault. I got you into this. I made you.
You brought us all together, Sam. That's what's most important. We're together. For the first time. Long, long time. Sam?
Yes, dear.
Kiss me, Sam. I guess I'm slipping. I thought I heard
So did I.
the tricks our imagination plays on us.
No, it isn't imagination. They made it. They got here.
Oh, thank God.
All right. I'll take Cindy. Can you handle Sandy?
Yes, dear. Here they are.
They're all okay.
Oh,
Mother.
Okay, darling, we're all right.
Smile for the television cameras.
I know. Like I was saying, cheese, not prunes.
Suspense. You've been listening to No Hiding Place, starring Court Benson and Grace Matthews, and written especially for Suspense by William N. Robeson. Suspense is produced and directed by Bruno Zorano Jr., music supervision by Ethel Huber. Heard in tonight's story were Lee Bynes as Charlie Lemon, Leon Janney as the mayor, Jimsy Summers as Cindy, Larry Robinson as Sandy, William Smith as Mr. Richards, and Ivor Francis as the announcer. This is Stuart Metz, inviting you to listen again next week when we return with Dreams, written by Jack Bundy, another tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Pretty real, don't you think? I thought that this story was very clever and very realistic. Many of the home bomb shelters of the 60s were one-room affairs accessible at the basement level within the house, while others were standalone cellar-type structures near the house. They typically had shelving for food and household storage, small beds including bunk beds, and minimal furniture, but usually no bathrooms. Life in a bomb shelter would be like indoor camping, but in very close quarters. It makes you glad that it never came to that.
As read by. Amazing stories read by amazing people.
This time on As Read By, we have an interesting story that needs a little background. Have you ever heard of Ann Landers? This was a pen name created by Chicago Sun-Times advice columnist Ruth Crowley in 1943. For 56 years, the Ask Ann Landers syndicated advice column was a regular feature in newspapers across North America. People would send in their problems, and Ann/Ruth would give advice. What we have today is a satirical advice column that was first published in Amazing Stories, August of 1962. This one pokes a bit of fun at Ann, but with a science fiction slant. It is titled Dear Nan Glanders by Beta McGavin, and it's read for us by Quartertone.
Dear Miss Glanders, from his childhood, my Johnny has been an avid collector of bugs, snakes, birds' nests, and other things. Our little Centurion home is crammed full with extraterrestrial life forms as well. I put up with it as long as I could. Yesterday, he brought home a native Centurion female. As you know, It is a quasi-intelligent mammalian form with the breasts and hips of a woman, fish scales and tail, and a horned head. Johnny insists he's going to marry her. What shall I do? Distressed mother. Dear Distressed, I suggest you contact your local fish and game department. Dear Nan Glanders, I am a hostess noted for my parties. Tomorrow we will have the Syrian ambassador and 2 of his 3 wives coming for a dinner party. How many forks and knives will be necessary for a guest with 3 sets of tentacles? Should I seat one of his wives on either side of him, or what? Worried. Dear Worried, seating arrangements are unnecessary, as Syrians prefer to hang attached by the dorsal suction disc from a ceiling fixture and suspend their elongated trunks to the table below. Just have a dish of adobe-type clay handy on the table and let them help themselves. Dear Miss Glanders, my mother-in-law is a noted TK with a high range of ESP and prescience. Today she asked me if I was pregnant. Do you think she could have peeked at my mind? P.S. I am 5 months along, but still get into my everyday clothes with the help of a safety pin. Concerned. Dear Safety Pinned, it's high time you peeked and buy a maternity smock while you're at it. Confidential to what will it be, I've consulted an obstetrician for you. He said the baby has to be human, a simple matter of differential chromosomes, so relax. Dear Nan, I was the victim of a 1,000,000,000 transplant accident. When I came out of the transmitter after commuting to work one day, 2 extra copies of my original body rather than only the usual 1 were reassembled at the receiving end. In other words, I became triplets with each person having the same memories and all. Nobody was around, so I decided not to report it to the transplant company. Until now, I was an ordinary guy who faithfully hands over his paycheck to the old girl every payday. Don't get me wrong now, I'm a happily married man, but I do like having a little spending money for myself and a night out with the boys every now and then. So the 3 of us made a deal. One of us went to work, another one would be home, and the 3rd out on the town. We took turns, share and share like. Then our wife caught 2 of us together and guessed the rest. She is suing for divorce and charging bigamy. We still love her, though. How can we get her to listen to reason? Since the case is in the newspapers anyway, I might as well sign my name. Married, for better or worse. Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Jones, Jimmy Jones. Dear Joneses, either reintegrate or draw straws and 2 of you skidoo. Dear Nan Glanders, I am a debutante on tour through the United Planets. I have never been so humiliated in my life. Yesterday I was presented to a regalian and he spat on my new shoes. I would have slapped his face if I could have decided which one to hit. Steaming. Dear Steaming, simmer down. Spitting on the feet is the traditional regalian gesture of welcome. You should have replied by stepping on his tail. Next time, read your tourist guidebook better.
Did you think that was clever? If you get a chance, search out Ann Landers' archive and read some of the letters from the past. You just might find out today's problems were close to yesterday's, and were not so different after all. That was episode number 657, and that is a whole lot of shows. Our storytellers today were Jason Dreyer and Dewey Hogan. My thanks to you both. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.